Nutrition and diet side of jiu-jitsu is still in the dark ages. I hang out with a lot of elite level jiu-jitsu guys. Like, I see what they're eating on their way into tournaments and before competitions and stuff, and I'm just like, man, their general reality is just like, let's just carb up, let's just eat whatever. The data would suggest that doing strength and conditioning equals a better result in competition. Paying attention to your nutrition equals a better result in competition. This is kind of the notion in jiu-jitsu, is that everyone cuts weight into the tournament. Or they think you have to be as big and as heavy as possible, and then you cut down to make weight for the tournament. Whereas we've done the reverse. We've stayed underweight all season. I can eat food, like before I go and weigh in on a Thursday, if I'm competing on a Friday, I can eat 3 meals and then make weight. I'm fully fueled up and I have a lot of energy.
And we are live. Jay, how are you, brother?
Good. Thanks for having me, bro.
Thanks for jumping on, man. I'm excited to be chatting with you. So you're a client of mine. We've been doing nutrition for a while together now, but you're also a freaking stud on the mat. I was actually had a podcast yesterday that dove deep into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I'm kind of in like the BJJ mode now. So we're going to talk about that quite a bit. But I was talking to him about you, and I don't even remember what all because you're like ranked number 1 or 2 based off of your height, age, and weight in your region. I don't know how the whole hierarchy of BJJ goes. So can you just kind of reveal that?
Yeah, we'll dive into that. Yeah, so the real pinnacle of jiu-jitsu, and I think people listening to your podcast, I think I've used this before, would be more accustomed to like professional bodybuilding in many senses, right? So like there's pros. So like being a black belt is like the absolute pinnacle as a pro, right? So for me, getting to that level is like, I'm trying to get to like that pro level by qualifying this season. So for me, at the one level below brown belt, for my age and weight, I am ranked number 1 in the world for the AJP Federation, biggest federation where I am, tournaments all over the world. And yeah, they just depending on the size of the tournament, the number of people enter, you just get points for number of wins and positioning. And I contacted you last November because the season runs November to November because that's just when the World Games are, once a year, November. And I was like, I've got a project, man. Let's do this and let's go everything we can all in on Worlds this time next year in November, and we'll compete as often as we can along the way. And we're about halfway through the season. Like 5 comps in of the 10 we had planned. And we're currently ranked number 1 or joint number 1. So we'll see how that goes by the end of the season.
Pretty badass, man. And where's the Worlds tournament held this year?
Luckily, just down the road from where I'm living in Abu Dhabi.
Nice. That'll be awesome, man. On your home turf.
Yeah, it'll be a home
location.
No, the company was founded here, so they'd like to have worlds here, but all of the big tournaments are in a different part of the world each year. So each year they have one in London, one in Turkey, one in Rio, one in Dallas. So they've got about 7 majors around the world that you get all the points for, and then the biggest one is Worlds, which takes like a week because they've got amateurs, youth, professionals, everything. It's like a 7-day, 8-day tournament of different categories, ages, weights, and everything. And that's every November.
So when it comes to, because like there's just so many variables with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like with bodybuilding, you got, based off of sex, males and females divisions, based off of category, like you got bikini, figure, bodybuilding, classic, and physique. And you got it based off of age to some extent. But like with BJJ, you've got like the age, the weight, and then you've got the belt. And how many different belts are there total?
Beginners, it goes white, blue, purple, brown, and then black. So it's not a perfect spectrum. Like it takes people different times, but usually it's like every few years you can go up to the level.
And is there like a tournament for each belt class? Like, is there like a tournament for all the white belts of a given age and weight class? And then once you level up that, then you're competing in the next belt category? How is that structured?
Yeah, so there's a million ways to be not a million ways to be promoted, but basically somebody has to like who is of a high enough stature in jiu-jitsu has to deem you worthy of going up. But as always, and this has always been my policy, that I always wanted to earn it in the arena, you know. So like I want to be promoted based off of my performance against my peer groups. So there's a saying a few of my instructors have had. It's like, if you want to promote yourself, just win worlds. Just become the best in your respective category, number one in the world, and then you can go up to the next level. So that's always, not that it's like easy to do. And, you know, I'm not saying anyone that gets a medal or top three, top five is definitely worthy of going up, but it's like a North Star for me. It's like, okay, if I can stay either ranked number one or win worlds this year, then I punched my ticket myself to go up to the next level.
So if you win Worlds this year, November, they would then award you the black belt. So you'd be a black belt going forward, professional.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
the goal.
That's awesome, man. What got you into this in the first place? What was the draw to BJJ?
So when I was a kid, you know, my dad was doing martial arts and he took me and we just did like a few different martial arts. And I was doing striking when I was a child, like more like, you know, traditional karate, combats and all these sorts of things. And my goal was to make it into the Olympic Games in Taekwondo. So that was all I was doing until I was like 20, 21, 22. I got through like a few of the selection rounds. I didn't quite make it into the 2024 or 2012 London Games. This was my goal. Anyway, sensationally, like, didn't get to where I wanted to be. I got like right to the final selections, and it was like, sorry, you can come back in 4 years. Keep trying. So I kind of just then pivoted. Like I was watching all of this UFC stuff on the TV and started doing some MMA fights. And then I was like, oh wow, I can't spend my entire 20s getting punched in the head all the time. So I just ended up going full circle and then taking up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So because it's the closest thing you can do to like going as physically hard as you can in like a combat sense without day-to-day concussion, you know. So it's kind of a long journey to get all the way from striking to grappling, but yeah, it's just become such an addiction because the way I see it is there's such a small feedback loop to effort. It's like if you put in a few extra sessions or you do a little bit of extra studying and you develop technically or you develop physically, any sort of like anything you do in your life to make that 1%, you notice it straight away in training because you have, let's say, more success against other people in like a combat situation, which for me, I think really lights up the reward center in your brain. So it's that putting in effort and getting immediate reward the next week or the week after, and then continually chasing that cycle all the time. I can imagine when I was doing like some physique work in my 20s, it's a very, very long, drawn out process, and you have to like trust the process. Not when you're cutting, when you're doing those last like 10 to 12 weeks, you know, you can see the improvements every single week. It's very immediately gratifying. But with jiu-jitsu and combat sports, it's like there's a direct correlation between effort now and then like gains, like positive feedback loop, you know. So that's why I find for a lot of people, and especially for myself, it's such an addictive sport to play.
Yeah, it's definitely got my interest, man. I feel like kids, we all watch like the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, you know, so we all get interested in like the combat sports and striking. But like if you're going all out in striking, like you said, you're going to get concussions every week, and you can't really sustain that really without injury. And if you're not going 100%, there's a whole bunch of drills you can do that are applicable. But I like going 100% to like see real life scenarios. Whereas with jiu-jitsu, you can theoretically go 100% and your risk of injury is significantly reduced from that of a striking sport, which appeals to me. So yeah, man, I'm probably gonna like rip the Band-Aid off and just dive into it full speed at some point here soon. I'm probably gonna get my son. There's like a class. I was telling this on the other podcast. But there's a class down the road from me. They have like a 3 to 5 range, 3 to 5 year old class for kids. So I might get him involved in it so he can start building up some of those skills at an early age. And just do it myself so I can do that with him. But if I get him in jiu-jitsu at 3 years old, man, he's gonna be a freaking savage.
Especially given your like background, strength and conditioning, like nutrition, it's gonna be like unfair advantages. Like I said to the clubs where I've been at, as soon as my daughter starts taking it up, like I'm retiring and being full-time coach. Like I'm doing as much as I can now to do what I've got to do, because I know that it's going to be so much more rewarding for me to like invest in, like I only have a daughter now, but assuming that I have more kids, like in their physical pursuits.
100%. How old's your daughter?
Well, she's one, but like she's 15 months now. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's running around
Awesome.
talking, like just picking things up and passing them to me. It's wonderful. It's a super rewarding experience. But as I was saying to my wife, it changes you so much that I don't even know if I could compare what I would have thought before I had children. It's like there's like a physiological and psychological change that you can never go back. It's like a one-way street. Like, so yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. I've been thinking about this a lot lately because we just had our second the other week, and it's like I feel just as motivated with the business, just as ambitious with all of my personal goals. But in the past, before I had kids, it was more of a selfish ambition. Like I want to do this for me. And now it's like I want to do this to teach them and like use it as a vehicle to like just empower them and teach them life skills and character traits. So I think that's a positive thing for sure. But it's also like I'll be at work. Like when I was before having kids, like I just wanted to work. That's all I ever wanted to do. And now that I've got kids, like I really look forward to getting home and just like laying there with them or playing with them or whatever. And it's like, I don't know, man. It's interesting dynamic for sure, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like before children, my whole life was work and training, work and training, work and training. And now it's work, training, and my daughter, my family, my wife as well. So it's just like now there's three things that I'm continually rotating between. And I realized that it's always a cost to everything, right? And there was so many things that obviously weren't of value because they didn't stay. Only the things that of value you managed to keep in your life. Now everything I compare to, is this worth spending an hour with my daughter? And if it doesn't pass that test, it doesn't pass a test. And most of the time, nothing really passes that test. It's like, okay, working, training, spending time with my daughter. Like I used to be super into like the UFC, and I would watch like 4 hours on a Sunday morning, and now I'm like, no,
Yeah.
that's not worth it for me.
100%, man. 100%. So another interesting variable to throw into this whole mix we haven't touched on yet is that you're also type 1 diabetic. So you're doing all this at a high level, going up against the best in the world in November as a type 1 diabetic, which is probably the main motivating factor for you to do the keto carnivore diet that you're on right now to help with, blood sugar regulation, insulin demands. But what has that been like? When were you diagnosed as type 1?
So I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 14 years old. It runs in my family. So we have a gene for it that gets expressed under certain conditions. My brother has it and my grandfather had it. So, and my sister got it very, very late in life, which is a rarity, but there we go. So there's something in our family. So my grandmother spotted it early. Obviously, she was with my grandfather for many years, and she just spotted the symptoms and was like, okay, let's take this takes one to the hospital to run some tests. So we caught it very early. So I didn't really get a lot of the huge initial negative impacts that people get losing weight, all that sort of stuff. So I was very, very quite early. But that is type 1 diabetes. And it was whenever everyone wants something. For me, it's always been about like achieving my potential. I'm very keeps me up at night, or that thought of that deathbed of unfulfilled potential, like what could have been, So for me, I have type 1 diabetes, and I wanted to still achieve all of these things physically. And like, I've had a couple of interests over the years, but it's generally like my obsession, or I'm all in on, is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So yeah, to cycle back, I was diagnosed at 14. And then in my mid to late 20s, I started to get really, really severe like GI issues, gut
Mm-hmm.
issues. Um, and all of that sort of stuff led me to like just searching for the right answer. And then I ended up doing the carnivore diet, and that helped clear up a lot of my underlying GI issues. Largely just because it's like an elimination diet, and that's basically. And secondly, it's just, I couldn't believe how much easier it was to manage my blood sugar. So whether it's optimal for the type of training I do or any of these bits and pieces, for me as an individual, um, cleaning up my gut issues and making it so much easier to manage my blood sugar is like, it's like an insane win, because, before that, my training performance was hugely dependent on how my blood sugar was behaving that day. I mean, that's still the case now, but like it was so volatile. Like I could be crashing, I could be going high. I was, you know, just, if we go back to those GI issue days, like just unable to put on any muscle mass. I was lethargic, I was tired, all these sorts of things. So initially I found online like, okay, let's do this carnivore diet. And it was like a complete game changer for me because my gut health healed up. I started to put muscle mass on. I had all of this like energy. My brain cleared up. My blood sugar was managing much better. But I think that as a type 1 diabetic, there was still stuff left on the table, So I still, even when I contacted you to do this whole project, I was still 5 or 6 years already in as a carnivore. And, like people are like, oh, everything about that. You must have that down to a T. But no, it wasn't the case. Like while I was now able to play the games, able to do jiu-jitsu, able to train properly, I still didn't have complete control of my blood sugar. I still had trouble making weight for tournaments. And then as when I contacted you, I was just like hungry, like all the time. I had low satiety. So, and then, the first thing you did with my entire like nutrition was like half my protein and double my fat. And, that was like, it's scary at the time because you have these preconceived notions that it's like, oh, I'm going to lose all my muscle mass or all of these,
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to go to train and all these lots of pieces. And then that much fat, that's crazy, like amount of fats to eat. And then, you can no longer, for me, I couldn't just get by just eating steak, oh, I'm just going to eat steak. Every time I'm hungry, I'm just going to eat steak, like just whatever, we had to be like a lot more precise with what we were doing to like match it up to the requirements of my body, because I think if someone is just normally training 3 times a week, 4 times a week, 3 times a week, they can just get away with just eating that kind of ratio of protein to energy that just comes naturally from steak. But for me and for context, I could train 10, 11 sessions a week, and we can dive all into that. It was, if you just keep eating steak all the time, you're getting way too much protein and not enough energy with that. So it's basically my whole body was just running on protein all of the time, and I wasn't getting satiety. And the downstream effect of that was just like blood sugar dysregulation later in the day, in the evening, or in the morning, or around training. So yeah, the two biggest things that we've managed to conquer together, or me working with you, is managing that blood sugar day to day, like being able to get through training weeks. We've seen my time in target range like double since we've been working together, or at least increase by 50%. And then the next challenge, which was how to manage that glucose during training days. So yeah, lots of changes. But as you just said then, before we dive back into that, I forget that I do this with type 1 diabetes. And I forget that everyone that I compete against doesn't have type 1 diabetes. Like there's no jiu-jitsu category for type 1 diabetes, So, I'm on the mats in a competition face to face with someone, and like their goal is I need to just like be as technically good as I can. My goal is I just need to get onto the mat with like hydration, stable blood glucose. I need to have slept. Like there's so many things that I'm thinking about that are not fighting related. So that there's so much going on. And then as soon as I finish a round, it's like I need to run off, the effects of adrenaline, all these things. I'm sure we'll get into this and break it down. But yeah, it's interesting that, when you say these things like, oh yeah, you have type 1 diabetes, because I forget that not everyone else has it. And I forget that it's a disadvantage. It's a huge, like it is a significant disadvantage,
It is, but it's cool. I mean, you've got the totally right mindset in dealing with the reality of a situation. But like, I like working with type 1 diabetic clients because, like Carnivore, for instance, Carnivore is great. I'm a big advocate for Carnivore. It's a great elimination diet. It removes the variables. It gets people to like a good stable baseline. But if you're trying to achieve top tier performance, and if you're just simply intuitively eating a steak whenever you're hungry, there's so much that you can still manipulate that you don't recognize as manipulable because you're just already assuming that you're bare essentials eating a steak every single day. And if you have, normal functioning, insulin levels, independent type 1, then your body can kind of mask a lot of those shortcomings and you can just kind of roll with the punches. But that doesn't mean they're not still there, even in someone that's not a type 1 diabetic individual. So like with type 1s, there's like immediate feedback to everything, kind of like the jiu-jitsu. Like you want to learn a new skill, you learn it, and then you can immediately apply it. And the next time you're rolling and you see the fruits of your labor. Same thing with type 1s. Like you make a very fine-tuned finesse change to your nutrition or training or sleep or whatever, and it's like immediate feedback that is inherently happening with those that are not type 1, but it goes unnoticed because they've got that, lag effect and they just are blanketed to it. So it's cool to work with people like yourself. But then, yeah, man, just like competing at the level you are with that is super inspiring because I don't know, like in jiu-jitsu, is there like a general consensus amongst the competitors of like a certain diet they typically follow? Like with bodybuilding, it's always obviously like the bro diet or flexible dieting. With CrossFit, it's like paleo. Like, is there like a standard diet that most Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitors tend to follow?
I think that the strength and conditioning side of jiu-jitsu is still in the dark ages. Like it's progressing now. The UFC have just like started jiu-jitsu in a many way. They've got their second event coming up. So they've signed UFC athletes that can go to the UFC PI and they do all of the latest testing and nutrition and diets and body composition testing. So it's early days for that. But I think that I hang out with a lot of like elite level jiu-jitsu guys. I'm lucky enough to live in Abu Dhabi and there's people that are meddling at the absolute like highest level in the world, the elite competitors. And like, I see what they're eating on their way into tournaments and before competitions and stuff. And I'm just like, man, like, it's like, not, it's not optimal, lads, but they're doing it. So I think, the general reality is just like, let's just carb up, let's just eat whatever. Like I'm a jiu-jitsu athlete, so just need to make sure that I've eaten plenty of rice, pasta, anything, and then they just go for it. So it'd be interesting to see how it evolves now as it becomes a very financially lucrative sport, because it's really heading in that direction now. So now obviously when you have more money available and then there's more, that brings the best athletes in the world that are going to be looking for that kind of paycheck. Like people will make that career choice. Then that 1% margins is going to be down to nutrition, sleep, and all these things. And the very elite athletes are doing that. But in the broad set of general jiu-jitsu athletes, it's still behind the times.
Yeah, it's super interesting, man. I guess like in physique-based sports like bodybuilding, from what I'm familiar with, like there's such an emphasis on nutrition and training, obviously. But like, if you think about it, like I don't think you ever hear baseball players, basketball players, wrestlers, like they never talk about what they eat. So like that's just not even really in the conversation. So it makes sense that it wouldn't really be so for jiu-jitsu either. But man, like when I was on that podcast yesterday, and he comes from a background, lifting, like he's done a competition before, so he comes from like the lifting background, and he was just doing that in tandem with jiu-jitsu, and he kept getting a bunch of questions from people he'd roll with about like, how do I build up my shoulders? I've got injuries. What exercises can I do to minimize risk of injury? And it's like a lot of competitors in jiu-jitsu, like they don't even train from like a physique, hypertrophy or strength standpoint. Like it's more so just to focus on technique, in the actual sport of jiu-jitsu. But I'm like, man, if I'm wanting to be the best, jiu-jitsu artist I can be, like I'm going to put a significant time, attention, and detail into training modalities and, what I'm consuming. That's going to have like a direct impact.
100%. And that's the way I've structured my training. I think that it doesn't help that there's some guys that are really on our mindset and they're winning a lot of things. But then, there's other guys out there that are just like, they're super successful despite having awful strength and conditioning. And then they'll say like, I just eat pizzas and just, I don't even strength train. I just rock climb. Rock climbing does all of my strength training for me or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but that's, for me, I understand that's in spite of your performances, in spite of that, like it's not because of that. And it's kind of like the wrong messaging for people. So I'm very into, obviously strength and conditioning. My professional career is like I'm head of operations for fitness businesses, and I consult for other fitness businesses. Like we have fitness businesses all through Asia. And so I was, a personal trainer for 10 years before transitioning into more of like a professional like desk job. And so physique, training, nutrition, it's just been ingrained in me for a very long time. And if it wasn't for the strength and conditioning side of things, like the lifting, the loaded mobility, the nutrition, the cardio, I wouldn't be able to do the amount of jiu-jitsu that I do. It's like more training allows me to do more training, which people often don't understand that's kind of the thing. Whereas jiu-jitsu guys just do jiu-jitsu. They're like, oh, if I miss, I'm not going to not do jiu-jitsu session and go and do strength and conditioning, like I'll be doing jiu-jitsu in that space instead, but as we know, like if you just run all the time or you just cycle all the time and you're just in like a singular pattern and you don't build up the resiliency around your joints, you're going to get injured, and like the number one thing for me for progression is like sustainability and longevity of continued training. I really thought this when I was training like 7 days a week in jiu-jitsu earlier on, a few years ago, I would get injured and then I would miss a week or two of training. And then I really mapped it out on like a spreadsheet. And I was like, okay, if I can sustainably do like 5 sessions of 90 minutes a week for a year, that's way more training than doing 7 and then missing a week and then doing, so yeah, I'm blessed and fortunate that I do come from like a strength and conditioning background, and evidently it's working because I'm winning, which is not like really to be like, haha, I'm right. I'm just saying the data would suggest that doing strength and conditioning equals a better result in competition. Paying attention to your nutrition equals a better result in competition, because like before I started working with you, and this is kind of the notion in jiu-jitsu, is that everyone cuts weight into the tournament, or they think you have to be as big and as heavy as possible, and then you cut down to make weight for the tournament. Whereas we've done the reverse. We made weight for the competition. We had to make weight for the first one. We had to bring our weight down for the first one, but we've stayed underweight all season, and I am walking around under my weight class. So like I can eat food, like before I go and weigh in on a Thursday, if I'm competing on a Friday, I can eat 3 meals and then make weight, it is a complete, like I'm fully fueled up and I have a lot of energy, and the only difference is that I'm just not carrying extra body fat that everyone else is cutting last minute because they think it gives them a size advantage. It would be different if we end up putting on so much muscle mass that we're struggling to make weight because we can't drop our body fat any lower that it hinders performance. But I don't think many people in the world are in that category where they're too muscular for like a weight class.
Yeah, and that's the interesting one, man. Like, because I'll see, wrestlers do this all the time. I've got some clients that are now bodybuilders, but they've come from like a wrestling background, and they've got this very skewed notion of like cutting weight leading up to the show. And it's like, man, if you cut weight drastically via, dehydration, sauna suits, or fasting, it's like your electrolytes are going to be jacked, your muscles aren't going to be hydrated, your brain's not going to be hydrated, and you're not going to have any fuel in your system. Your muscle glycogen's going to be depleted. Like, the day that it counts on performance day, on tournament day, like you're going to be in your worst shape just to make weight. That makes no sense. So like with you, as we said, we got down to weight and now we're basically reverse dieting you up to that point, and you're eating more food now than I would argue anybody you're competing against. And it's all like super high nutrient dense foods, and you're at no risk of being overweight. So like while they're all depleted on the mat, you're going to be just ripping their heads off, man.
Yeah, and that's what we found like this year. It's quite interesting because when everyone weighs in, everyone's weight is logged against their name in the bracket. And yeah, we weighed in 82 for an 85 kilo category, 83.1 in clothes after eating all day for the first half of the season. I know we've done a refeed and we've gained a little bit of weight during this like summer break, if you want to say. Um, but we're still underweight, and yeah, it's always wild to see everyone that's exactly 85.0. It's like, oh, there was an element of struggle to get there. That
Mm-hmm.
wasn't by accident. You were on like the actual limit. Um, and yeah, like, we'll see. Like, I can't talk early, like, but yeah, I could come across someone that did a nice water cut down from 90 kg and was just too big and too strong for me at the end of the season. And then we'll just readdress and do something about that then. But for now, we seem to be fine being underweight.
Plus, I mean, you're freaking jacked, man. Like you're shredded. You got good muscle conditioning. I mean, like I would argue a better physical specimen of health on the mat, totally independent of the technical stuff than the guys you're rolling with. Like I've never been to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament, but I would assume that you speak the part of health much more so than many of those other competitors.
Yeah. And, this is a notion from diabetes. I mean, okay, it doesn't force you. You have the choice whether to be in shape at any time. You're obviously like a proponent of being in amazing shape. And I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this, but having diabetes, if you want to if you want to be able to be competitive, you have to take care of your body much more than somebody else does. Like for me, um, to be at a certain body composition takes me more work because it's like driving a car on manual versus driving a car on automatic. Because like when I put in food, I've got to put the exact right medication in at the exact amount of right time, and then monitor that over a few hours to make sure that that blood sugar is stable. And it's impossible to do that as well as a human body does it on its own. And then, like when we change our macros or when we change our diet a little bit, and I come back to you and I give you, I was crashing quite a lot. So I had to consume X amount of glucose this week or X amount of glucose over these last few days, which brings you out of a deficit sometimes. Like, I can be in a perfect deficit all day and then make a slight medication error at the end of the day, and bam, the deficit's gone. So, for type 1 diabetic, you have to work longer and harder over a longer period of time to get the same body composition results because of doing it manually, and like the margin for error is so small and until your deficit disappears, because you can increase your deficit and we could go, okay, we're just going to put you in like an 800 or 700 calorie deficit per day to account for any like mishaps. But, like then training performance is going to tank. Everything's going to tank. It'll be miserable, not going to be sleeping. It'll be libido. When you're training 3.5 hours a day, or, like when you're training 2.5 hours a day, two sessions, um, it's like, as you've taught me, you have to be very, very fine margins with your deficit, because it's very easy to go too far quickly and then be in a black hole and performance suffer, stop sleeping, and all these sorts of things. So yeah, it is a challenge to stay in shape with diabetes, which is why we started a year out. Our goal was let's be in shape in 1 year's time. And I don't think people think about like what they're going to be and where they're going to be in a year's time.
Yeah, but it's so important, man. Like I always try to take this long game approach to anything. I hate these like short term, summer shred cuts that everybody does. It's like you got to play the long game. You got to diet slowly to maximize performance. You got to reverse that out of that deficit in a healthy manner, not get sloppy, not put on too much body weight in the off season. Like there's so many moving pieces, but if you put those pieces in together properly, then you just keep getting better every single year. Your metabolism improves, hormone function improves, composition improves. And yeah, it's a lot harder to drive a manual than it is an automatic, but damn, man, manual stick driven vehicles are way more fun.
Yeah, I'm noticing that since I've been here and I'm just starting to drive automatic. But the larger macro of that is like for me being so invested in this project, and I was talking to my wife about this because it is an investment. It's an investment obviously in capital, but it's also an investment in energy and time, and it's a huge commitment. But what we've realized is that my blood sugar has been the best it's been all year. Like my eating has been the best it's been ever. Like my body composition consistently has been the best it's been forever. And to go back to what we were talking about as doing things for your family, um, competing and being driven, the byproduct of that is like I am the healthiest, fittest, strongest, fastest person I've ever been in my life, and that I can serve that to my family. Like by mastering this approach and being in this for this whole year, it's going to give me skills and awareness and knowledge that I'm going to be able to carry for 20, 30, 40 years to come, and having an extra 20% of blood sugar or any marginal measurement on that is going to keep me alive longer and younger. Like I'm a masters competitor now. I make no hiding from the fact that I'm 35 and in 2 weeks I'm turning 36, but I train with mid 20-year-olds all day, every day, all week. Like my training partners are adult professional competitors. And I can only do that because of the lifestyle that I choose.
Yeah.
So there's so much more to it than just competing and trying to win medals. It's like it's that whole like this has changed my life in terms of like what I'm just the health, everything. Like what I'm able to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it's super fulfilling, man. Like I feel the same way every time I go through a competition prep. It's like at the end of the day, you're on stage for 2 minutes and you get a plastic trophy, big whoop. But like where you have to go psychologically, emotionally, physically to get there through months and months of effort, it's like, man, that bleeds into every component of your life because there's no separation. Like when you become fully invested in it and you're just totally immersed, there's no, okay, I got my family here, I got my work here, I got my fitness endeavors here. Like it all melds into one. Like everybody has to be on board. Your wife has to be supportive. Your family has to be on the same page. Like everything's all inclusive. But once you get that dialed in and you see the fruits of your labor, it bleeds into all those other areas in a positive manner. Like you can be a better provider, you can be a more confident husband and father, and just I don't know, man, like that. It's good for your kids too. I know she's only 15 months, but like as you continue to do this, like seeing you push yourself, pursue bigger things and like not want to be on your deathbed with regret. Like that's my biggest fear in life, man, is mediocrity and complacency. Like I'm fighting that with every breath of my being. But like seeing their father push beyond the limits, like that's empowering for them, man. Like that's gonna transform them in ways that you won't even realize until probably long after you're gone. Like they're gonna be living on that, well into the future. And that's priceless, man. Priceless.
Yeah, I was really, before having a daughter, I was really inspired or really motivated to inspire type 1 diabetics, and I am. A lot of my social content, when I've got time between all of my endeavors, is diabetes related. But, it's funny how you have a child and then your whole focus is just inspiring them, looking after
Mm-hmm.
that immediate generation, like it's not to say that I'm not, um, enthralled. Like I love meeting diabetics and them asking me questions, and I get so many DMs about blood sugar and all these things now. But yeah, like, it's it's a far distant second to like any little change your daughter makes, or it's like I've been feeding my daughter steak since she was like 3 months old or 4 months old, like just, and then people would be like, you sure you can feed your babies meat? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I blend it, chew it up, whatever, give it to her, like I'm just so invested in her future.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. Like I'm excited when my kids are old enough to like want to start lifting with me, and if we start doing jujitsu together, I'm stoked for that. But like I'll do push-ups in the morning, and then I'll look over, and my son will be like trying to do a push-up, on the floor next to me. It's the sweetest thing. And then I'll like be eating a big old steak, and then he'll be reaching for the same thing. He eats the same thing that we eat. So it's like I don't know, man. Like it's cool. Like being a parent gives you the opportunity to just leave the world a better place than you found it. And I mean, that's an amazing opportunity that we all have. It's like you got to just take full advantage of it, man. Take it and run with it.
Couldn't have said that better myself, man.
So give me some details on like how you've got, I know, you and I work together, so I kind of know what your macros and training splits and everything are, but for those listening, kind of like break down a typical week for you. How are you fitting in your weight training, your meal timing, your insulin requirements, your jiu-jitsu training? Like how does all that look if mapped out over a 7-day period?
Yeah, good. We've changed it up a few times, and partly because I mean the first like 4 months that I was working with you, I was traveling the world. Like I was in a different city every couple of weeks. So the biggest things up until that point, and it's a bit different now because it's stable, was when is training? When is, wherever a city I'm in, when is the best? Where is the best training for me? And so it was kind of like building my day and my life around that. But now that I'm settled and I'm here in Abu Dhabi, the best training is in the evening. So it's about 6 to 8 p.m. in the evening. So we've had to rebuild our training and nutrition and meal plans to deal with evening training, which we didn't do that for the first like 3-4 months of our relationship. So we had to overhaul our entire meal plan. In the old days, it would work quite well to have like a really early eating window and a training window, and then have that period of no intake. But so for now, for me, because of my family and because of recovery and all these things, I train twice a day, Monday to Friday, and then I don't train on Saturday and a Sunday. I found that my performance is being better this way, and I've got more time to spend with my wife and my daughter. I'd be interested to see like 3 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off. But actually, I'm training so hard now, Monday to Friday, that like Saturday, I'm like taking naps in the daytime. Like I'm like just so run down. And then Sunday, I'm like, oh, no, I don't feel like training today. But by the end of Sunday, I'm like, oh yeah, I can't wait to train tomorrow. So it's been very good to take that 5-2 approach to my training. So because Jiu-Jitsu is in the evening, 6 to 8 p.m., Monday to Friday, which when I was living in Singapore, that's a lot more volume here. I'll I'll go to training, there'll be a warm up, we'll do some technique work, and then there's an hour of sparring every single day. Um, and there's like between 6 and 8 rounds on average of like 5 or 6 minutes with a minute break, which is the most volume I've ever done since being here. So we've had to account for that and make sure we've got fuel later in the day. So for me, I wake up around, I'd love to wake up at 6:30, but I'm not quite there yet. I wake up at about 5:45, 6 o'clock. And then it's about hydrating and getting some nutrients in. So this is going to be I mean, everyone listening to this podcast must know, but the notion of bringing on fat bombs into my diet has been wonderful because I can get a lot of calories in and not have to worry about, if I go straight to training, the impact on my digestion or blood sugar from taking carbohydrates or protein. So the first thing that I do when I wake up is take as much keto brick or fat bomb as I possibly can that fits into my macros. Now, I would love to eat a whole one twice a day, but I don't have 4,000 calories a day at this moment in my life. So yeah, that's the first thing I do is I wake up, I hydrate, some electrolytes and a little bit of caffeine and fat bomb fuel. And then it's straight to the gym to do my strength and conditioning or cardio. So 3 days a week, 3 or 4 days a week, I'm lifting upper lower, or on the other days to make it up to 5, I'm doing steady state cardio. It depends what part of the season in and what my limiting factor is. During the season, I tend to do a little bit more steady state cardio. But now we're just doing a lot of lifting because we have a lot of calories in. I'm still a little bit away out from the tournament. So I've been lifting 4 days a week again with more volume. So more progressive overload, using those calories to get stronger. So that is about 6:30 until about 7:30, 7:45. Then I come back to the house, wake the girls up who sleep a lot longer than me, give my wife some coffee, and then we kind of have some breakfast together, which is meal one, feeding one. And then I check into work about 8:30 and I'm running operations, doing calls, doing all these sorts of things. And then my second meal of the day comes in whenever lunch break is scheduled for that day, sometime in that 12 till 2 p.m. window. Let's say an average about 1 p.m. And then back to work. And then I have another fat bomb around 4 or 5 p.m., which is like either a quarter or another third of a keto break at the moment. Hydrate. After training session 2, which is the hard one for the day. Huge session. Come home. Meal 3. Evening supplements. And then to bed. And that is a typical training day with nutrition. So insulin requirements change depending on whether I'm in a surplus or a deficit. But for example, on this current setup that we're on about maintenance. I've got to do a little bit of medication when I first wake up in terms of insulin, because waking up, just getting out of bed generally raises cortisol. And the cortisol's primary job in the body is to liberate blood glucose to get you up and going to do things. So all type 1 diabetics get a small rise of glucose in the morning. So if I'm in a severe, like not severe, but if I'm in like a deep training fatigue and we're in a deficit, that amount of red medication I have to do is very small. Whereas if I'm in a surplus and I'm well rested and my glycogen stores are super high, the amount of medication I might have to do is quite high. It just depends on what I'm carrying and the amount of stress hormone I'm under and how much blood sugar my body kind of releases. So in general, let's say it's like 2 to 3 units, but it's never a guarantee of what it's going to be. It's just like, it depends on all of the other variables we've got going across the day, which is why we write it down every day. So we kind of got a good grasp on that. If I'm doing cardio, I don't need to do any medication post-workout. Because steady state cardio really just burns up a lot of glucose, actually really, really improves my insulin sensitivity. Even if I was not in need of improving my aerobic base and I wasn't interested in doing a deficit or burning up calories or any of these things, doing some degree of cardiovascular work has always been a huge insulin sensitivity booster for me. So I'm not sure about other type 1 diabetics or stuff, but in general, like doing either just steps or cardio or whatever really reduces the amount of medication I have to take per day. Whereas if I'm doing like heavy or high intensity weightlifting, like lower reps, like 3, 5, 6, lower body work, that can liberate a lot of glucose from my bloodstream, or like because the stress hormone goes up a lot. So I might need to medicate post workout. So we kind of got like 2 setups. A couple different, all these variables coming in. Am I in a deficit? Am I not in a deficit? Like how much sugar have I had? Am I doing cardio? Am I doing resistance training to know whether to inject or not? And then that's just a complicated bit. After that, it's fairly simple. It's like, if you're on a keto carnivore kind of approach, you just need to medicate 2 to 3 hours after every meal from there. So meal 1 is going to be around 8:30. So I know around 10, 11, I'm going to have to take a little bit of medication to cover the rise in glucose from meal 1. The same for my lunch meal. And then because I trained so hard lately in the evening, I haven't had to take any medication generally for my 3rd meal of the day, because I'm just going to sleep and my body's still burning up all of that fuel, because it's like basically training, go straight home, eat, sleep. So I'm still recovering all of that sort of stuff. So I've noticed that my evening insulin requirement is very low. So Yeah, I'm currently taking about 14 units of medication per day. When we were doing our lowest calories, as we were just trialing that lower calories into refeed, I was only doing about 11 or 12 units of insulin per day. When I was in university and drinking and eating whatever I wanted to do, I was taking like 65 units of insulin a day or something. Like, so it's like, it's insane, the difference.
Yeah, I'm always blown away when I meet a diabetic that's not doing a keto or carnivore approach. I'm like, man, totally independent of the compositional changes and like how you feel, just like the sheer amount of reduction in insulin that you would have to be taking in on a regular basis, like that alone should be a motivating factor to pull the tide and just flip the switch.
Less exogenous stuff in you, the better, right? And in some senses.
When it comes to like with your calories right now, we've got you higher, kind of in this maintenance low period here before the next tournament. What foods have you been using to comprise those three meals?
Um, yeah, good question. So I'm my superpower, I guess all people have done physique in the past is just being able to eat the same thing over and over again without really like stressing about it. So I'm blessed that my wife is an absolutely wonderful cook. So we basically cook up a cut of meat that goes into the fridge and then we eat that until it's gone. So she cooked up 2 days ago, like the biggest kind of like prime rib bone in kind of like ribeye. And then she made 15 meals out of it. So like based on what you recommended, that goes into the fridge and then I just eat them one at a time. Um, and then if I'm strangely enough, if I'm really feeling like I need a boost, I'll switch it up for that one meal for like eggs. So I'll just switch to like 8 to 10 eggs or something. So that either just like a palate change or whatever. So before this, we had like lamb leg, and before that, we had beef shoulder. So it's a cut of meat that is always around 15% fat that we cut up for, depending on the macros you programmed, anywhere between 275 and 325 grams of meat. Raw weight, obviously we account for that once it's been cooked. And then there we go. We just repeat that out. I don't really eat out. If I do eat out, it's either after a tournament and I'm like, hey, coach, I'm just going to go and eat loads of steak at this random restaurant. And you're like, sure, man, that's cool. Only after a tournament. Or if it's like on the weekend and I'm out with my girls, I know a few places that sell like salmon and eggs, pretty boring. And I'll just change that up and get takeaway salmon and eggs. But yeah, that's basically it. I did chat to my butcher on the weekend and he's going to blend up, I say mince a load of shoulder and some organs for me. So I'm going to try next week having some like 10% of the burger is liver, 10% of the burger is like kidney, and just seeing how that does with like energy, satiety, and cravings, just as an experiment. But I am like eat the majority of my meals cold, and I eat the same thing for like 4 days, and then it changes for the next 4 days depending on whatever cut of meat my wife takes out of the freezer.
Yeah, it's keeping it simple, man. Like it's the key. Like people become a slave to just this overabundance of food variety. And I like food as much as the next guy, but like when you're trying to dial in composition, especially if you're diabetic and really hone in on all the variables, like being blessed with being able to just eat consistently without deviation. I mean, you can get so much more fine tuned and dialed in and optimized that way. And then after you do it long enough, it's like you don't even feel like you're missing anything. It's just part of the day, you know?
So yeah, when I first went carnivore, just going to like 300 grams of like steak on a plate was such a like a mental change from like I used to eat a salad that would weigh a kilo, like spinach, figs, apples, chicken breasts. And then it's just like, this is so much food and I'm going to be like stuffed and I'm going to have an X. Like I can get on the scales afterwards and be like a kilo heavier from this meal. And then it's like, oh, 250 grams of meat. But like someone asked me the other day, they were like, hey, you do the carnivore diet. And I'm like, yeah, it's just like, I think it's my seventh year. I've totally lost track. I think it's my seventh year. And they're like, just gobsmacked that. Like I've just been eating steak and eggs for 7 years. But now
Yeah.
it's steak, eggs, and keto breaks.
Nice, nice. You eat much fish at all? Like, do you have very much fish in your diet? You said salmon and eggs, so like occasionally it sounds like.
Yes, yeah, yeah, love it, but it's just like not utilitarian enough
Still
for me.
lean.
Like, so when I go to the UK, when I visit home, I lived on mackerel for like a week. It was I just loved it. You know, like you can go into any of the supermarkets, and from Scotland, they've got it just like 500 grams, 200, 300 grams, whatever, of just smoked fish, loads of it. But it's when I'm at home during my routine, it's not just something that's super easy. And you know, like how we compared a unit of time to like spending a time with your kids. You have to compare that.
Hmm.
Any time that I have to eat, I have to compare that now to, is this going to be like after this meal? Honestly, am I going to feel as happy as eating something that my wife's made at home? Like, am I going to do this? And it's such a deterrent to eating out now because I'm like, we talked about the biggest fears in life is like being on your deathbed and having unfilled potentials. Yes, micro fear for the day is calories that let you down. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, like, you know, that is like a significant, like, I don't want to feel like I might be let down by this meal. So I'm just gonna stay in my lane and just eat a lot of red meat. But when I do go to the UK, I do clean out and I just eat my body weight's worth of smoked from mackerel until I can't eat anymore, and then there we are.
Yeah, that's nothing wrong with smoked mackerel, man. It's pretty tasty as well. But yeah, it's interesting, man. Like I don't ever hardly eat out either. We went to a steakhouse the other day with Crystal's dad was in town, and it's like, man, even a steakhouse, like I never enjoy their steaks as much as the steaks I prepare at the house. It's like I know what the macros are at the house. I know what seasoning was used. Like it's just I don't know, man. Like it just doesn't do anything for me like it used to. But when you're in control of all your world inputs, it's like you can just you know what works for you, and you just double down on that, and you don't have regret afterwards. You know, it's worthwhile sacrifice because at some point it shifts and it's no longer even a sacrifice because the sacrifice becomes what the opportunity cost would have been. You know.
Yeah, and you know, it might change like after this this year, but it's hard to think of anything else when you're so locked in on something. You know,
Yeah.
I might
Sure.
think differently next year. I might think differently in 2 years. I doubt it, but from where I'm standing, it's like the everything is like dialed into like meddling. You know, meddling at that time on November 19th, and it's just it is the combination of everything you do. You know, when I was with clients, and I was like at the end of each day, let's say you're in the middle, decisions you made either take you one step closer to your goals or one step further away. And sometimes it's perfectly fine to take one step further away. Like if that's the trade off, you know, like, for example, if like if someone was to have a glass of wine because it's a special occasion, all the things, you've made that in good conscious decision that this is going to be part of your journey. But for us, you know, like I think with our personality types, and this is why I think we get on so well, is that it's just like can't accept not being one step closer. I can't accept not putting one foot in front of the other all the time, you know. So that's just the decision we make. That's the mindset, you know. I know we talked about talking about mindset, and it's I think it's very hard for some people to hear people like us speak. And when you're so locked in on something, and when you're so driven on things, but it's kind of it's not it's you know people want the result. They don't want to do what it took to take the result in many cases. And this is not me putting people down. Like I'm sure there's people out there are plenty, maybe day to day happier than I am or we are in many instances. But like for me, I'm so like driven that it's a negative for me. Like it's a big negative if I don't step that forward. And there's that always that internal monologue and that pressure and that drive to keep going forward, you know. And I would love one day for that to just feel what it would be like to not have that drive to go forward. But I don't think that's ever going to change. And I think I'm always just going to need to have a goal to work towards to feel something. You know?
Yeah. No, I totally agree, man. I feel like there's no such thing as maintenance. You're either getting better in life or you're getting worse in life, and every decision you make is putting you, one step forward or one step back. Simple as that. And I feel like there's seasons in life where you have specific goals that demand more attention than others. Like when I'm in a prep for a competition, like my outlook, my day to day, my demeanor is different than when I'm not in a prep. But like every single day, I need to be making actionable steps towards the the goal. But the thing is, too, there is no finish line. The finish line is death. Like when you take your last breath, that is the finish line. So, like up until that point, there is no let off the gas necessarily. I mean, the gas may change, but like there is no aha, breathe easy, I've made it moment. Like there is no, you know, pinnacle. Like it's just life and it's not supposed to be easy. And I think once you've made that realization that, okay, if I want more of myself, I have to do more. That's it. It's just that simple. And like once you make that shift, it just becomes easier because then it doesn't feel like this sacrifice, it doesn't feel like this burden, it doesn't feel like this weight that you're bearing. It just feels like this is reality. And if I want more of myself, I'm going to have to ask more of myself and put in the effort. And effort is the great equalizer, man. Like effort dictates your outcome. And once you're at peace with that, like you can do freaking anything.
Yeah, I feel you. I, like I have this goal in jujitsu, but it's it could be anything, Like I'm so like obsessed with like, okay, let's just win worlds, but there's other people, former world champions, best in the world, that'll look at that and that's an insignificant goal for them. But this is all about us and how we feel and our individual journey, So I mean, like you can always relate, you can always try and look externally and try and pitch yourself against the the best in the world or whatever, and that's fine and that can be motivational, but it's all about, like, I think we're on the same page. It's all about being the best person we can be in whatever discipline we decide to chase of that. And if you're always trying to improve yourself, you're right. The game never ever stops because you're always there, and you've always got yourself to beat. And it might not be always physical, but then it might be intellectual, and it might be other things. Like, it's one thing that I'm worried about is I've done a good job of progressing myself physically and still improving year on year on year, but I know that at some point I'm not going to be able to improve. You know, my age is going to catch up with me, and I'm not going to be able to be as fast or as strong or something. Especially 40s, 50s, and then my goal is to fight that off as long as possible. But then I'm going to hopefully go through a change, or I'm worried about the change I'm going to go through, because I'm going to need another way to beat my former self. And I'm not going to, I can't rely on just pure athletic potential anymore. So I'm going to have to like change the goalposts at that point. But for now, goalposts are still set.
Yeah. And I feel like having a kid will paint that path for you, as it probably will me too. I mean, you'll measure your success more so on their success, and you don't want to like live vicariously through your kid necessarily, because that can get dangerous. But like you'll have a less selfish, it's not even bad to be selfish. Like right now in this stage, like it makes total sense to just like double down on being the best that you can be for this tournament and test yourself to that ability. But I feel, and this is just me assuming, but I'm assuming that when we have kids and we want to be the best parents we can be, our idea and our outlet for, just paying it forward and just inundating ourselves with information and content and quality and time and effort is going to be largely directed towards them. But yeah, man, the thing about the game never ending, it's really important. If the game never stops, which it doesn't, you got to really fall in love with the game in the first place. And so many people are just miserable in life, And if you're not even liking the game you're playing and the game isn't stopped until you're dead, like that's miserable. That's misery right there. Like you got to fall in love with the journey.
Or just change the game as quick as possible. You know, one of my friends
Yeah.
is going through that now. Like he's going really well in his career, but just like he's like, I can't do this, and I need to change the game as quickly as possible because it's just not fulfilling me. And I'm like, earlier you change, because as soon as you like, I don't want to be like, oh, as soon as you have kids, because I've only had a child for a year, so I can't really sit on my high horse and say everything that I'm a world expert in parenting, but like I've got to like provide. You know, that's more important.
Yeah. 100%,
Yeah,
man.
I think I think two things I should just note, because I think that anyone tuning into this going like, hey, type 1 diabetes and jiu-jitsu is going to be like, oh, these two dudes just talked about like lifestyle mindset for the entire hour, which is great. Like this is my perfect jam of conversation. But I think I would just, for anyone that does have type 1 diabetes and does jiu-jitsu, the tinkering that we did around training day, I think is a very good subject to not to go too far off on a tangent, to let everyone know how we set up our training days and our
Yeah, for sure. Let's dive into that.
and our macronutrients. So what we found was, and this was hard for me to work out and to accept in the beginning, but good thing that I'm so inspired, like by watching your weekly post transformation, that I was like, okay, I'm just gonna trust the process. So I think first thing you need to do is find someone that you completely have faith in, and then follow the boat, because this was like paradigm shifting for me, which is we actually ran deficits into tournaments, which is like the complete like opposite mindset that I needed to think about when running into a tournament, which I was always like, eat as much food as physically possible, you know, to be full and to be strong. So tapering into the tournament, you know, I basically, let's say we're competing on a Friday. We can probably clean out Wednesday, Thursday as rest days. So still training really hard Monday, Tuesday. But we will like, depending on where we are on nutritionally wise, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday will be like not very high calorie days. You know, there's not going to be a huge amount of intake coming in, or at least definitely Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then what we found was, by then we started off by 1 day, and the last one we actually did 2, and we'll see where we are for this one, was doing just 2 refeed days prior to the weigh-in day, you know, or including the weigh-in day. And for me,
Let's probably clarify that these are ketogenic refeed days, bolus of fat and protein, not carbohydrate refeed days.
yeah, that completely.
When we say refeeds, they're talking about carbs.
Yeah, just smashing in 500 grams of carbohydrates. Like, I don't even know if I could like psychologically get through that now. Just for the amount of food volume. But yeah, so we're doing these refeed days. Yeah, I don't even think about, like, my mind is so into like carbs and fat. But from tinkering, what we found out is that in general, like those 2 days before, we actually haven't consumed all that much protein. You know, we've brought it right down, brought fats up quite a lot. And what we did notice was that we actually got lighter, even going in with these refeed days, because taking out that extra protein, which draws in a lot of water on your digestive system, taking away 2 rest days, which cleans out a lot of inflammation, making sure that we get enough just like general flushing water through. Like I've been the lightest I've been on weigh-in day while fully refed, you know? So it took a lot of it took us like 4 or 5 tournaments to get the recipe down. And then what we found out on competition day was I eat one solid meal that day, but super early in the morning, as far away from competing as physically possible, so that it's completely digested and assimilated, and the medication's done and dusted, and that's all through my body ages before we've got to compete. So we try to not eat 6 to 8 hours any like solid protein before actual competing, and then we just, depending on the time of the competition, we just put in a couple of either one, sometimes two if it's a late competition, fat bombs, just to keep energy and body metabolism driving up. And what we've found was that the spiking blood glucose um, around the actual competing is diminished so much, just because there's from what I understand, and physiologically it could be different mechanisms, but the less you know the further away that you've completed your last meal, the less likely you are to have like spikes in glucose anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And because we've generally lowered protein for a few days, um, and just really, really reset up on fats, I don't think that I'm not entirely sure, but my light's just going on. I think that's my daughter playing with the light switches again. I don't think
Nice.
that there's a huge amount of like liver glycogen just being dumped out everywhere because we've consumed like 6 or 7 or 800 grams of carbohydrates a day before. So yeah, it's running like I've never done it in my life before. Like I've always been on, like before I started working with you, 250, 300 grams of protein a day. But to like do a couple of days and even a competition day up until the point of competition, of as little as like 100, 110 grams of protein for the like 1 or 2, 3 days before has been, yeah, super, super mindset shifting, but also so good for performance. Like and that's shown because we've been performing better and better every competition.
Yeah, it's cool for me, man, because like I've got everything dialed in from a bodybuilding peak week standpoint with a ketogenic approach. So now I've played around with that, for years on myself and on my clients, and I've got it honed in. And like there's certain instances where it makes sense to refeed 2 days prior to show day, or depending on the individual and how depleted they are, maybe the day before, or maybe I've even played around with, multi-day lead-ins prior to stepping on stage. But like when I got to thinking about your scenario, you're not on stage competing as a bodybuilder, you're rolling on the mats with a competitor and like you're type 1. But I'm thinking through it all and it's like, man, there's not too much difference here. Like you're still going to want your energy topped out, electrolyte equilibrium in check, hydration fully there. You're going to want your muscle glycogen to be full, but you're not going to want to have an overdone, from a protein standpoint. That's going to have an impact on, blood sugar and insulin requirements. So I'm like, well, let's just kind of mirror that, apply it to you, see how it works, and tweak as necessary. And that's what we've done. And it works pretty freaking solid, man. So it's cool to see the efficaciousness of this dietary protocol in the different sports on the actual day it counts when you're competing.
Yeah, it was such a problem before, and I think that just committing to doing 10 tournaments in a year, and some of these are like multi-day tournaments as well, has been huge, because there's no, outside of this one window that we have of like 6 to 8 weeks, there's no like off season. It's just, we've just been in
Mm-hmm.
season all year round. But the benefit of trial by fire is that we've just got to work it out. Like I'm so grateful that I put myself through this, and we still have a lot more like time tinkering to do before we get to the goal of November. And whether that's a successful day or not a successful day, we can rest easy knowing that we've tried so many different thinkers and renditions of what we're doing to make sure that having diabetes isn't as minimized as possible a limiting factor on that day.
Totally. Now I'm proud of you, man. I'm super excited for you. Is the tournament in November, is it going to be like televised? Like, is it going to be streamed anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, they've been streamed. I've been so fortunate that my tournament in London, the big tournament, was even commentated. So this is the first year that I've had like commentated matches and stuff. So people have like, I've had twice now of my last 4 tournaments where I'm on TV. I'm on local TV, or I'm streamed on the internet, and then people can there's commentators talking about what's going on as I'm doing it. So it's very weird to watch that back and go like, oh, this is Jay. He's been on the circuit. He's just won a medal in Dubai, and I was competing in London. And I'm like, wow, this is imposter syndrome, or I'm just lucky to be in the right place at the right time. But
yeah, man, you've earned it too. You earned it.
this is all exciting, but it's again, we'll have an even bigger challenge next year because like, okay, let's go pro.
Hey, well, like we said in the beginning, man, the game never stops. The finish line's non-existent. So you're just gonna keep fighting, man. And I'm excited to see the journey unfold, brother.
Me too, man. It's super. It's yeah. Where I forget, like we had that conversation 6 months ago, and yeah, here we are, 6 months in and 6 months left-ish.
And you're still rocking it, man. Still rocking it. Well, where do people go to find about more about you and follow along and just dive into your world, brother?
So yeah, I am Jay Horley on Instagram, and same for YouTube. I formerly was Diabetic Carnivore for a long time, but I kind of recently was like, I'm more than just like diabetic and a carnivore. Like I'm myself, so I kind of like pulled out of that, even though that was like my successful handle for a very long time and how most people knew me in the world. But then no one really knew my name when they met me, like it's always a handle. It's like, like I know you, but it's like, oh, you're Keto Savage, you know what I mean? Because everyone remembers your Instagram handle. So yeah, I'm at Jay Horley. When I've got time, between everything that I do, post a lot of diabetes content. If that's in the period of my life, outside of running a couple of businesses, spending time with my family and trying to train like a professional athlete, even though I'm a professional desk jockey. And yeah, that's where you can find me, keep up to date. I post tournament stuff and all that stuff. So if you have any carnivore or probably more specifically any diabetic questions, DM me. I get DMs all the time from diabetics all around the world, just asking me, quizzing me on things, and I will reply to you when I can.
Awesome. Well, I'll link out, make it easy for people to find you. And I'm serious, man. I'm about to dive into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So when I do that, I'm going to hire you as the coach, and I'll be picking your brain.
Yeah. So the beautiful thing about Jiu-Jitsu is coming from a coaching background like yourself, myself, you get really fussy about who coaches you and like the curriculum and the structure and like sets and reps. And knowing you and me, we'll think that repetition is that's our way to path to victory, because repetition in the gym room has been your path to everything that you've done, repeating. So it's very, we want repetition and consistency. So there's so many different schools of thought and instructions and all these things. So it'd be very, eye-opening for you to just experience all that. But man, yeah, I'm so excited for that journey of yours and taking your kids along. I just can't wait to dad and daughter jiu-jitsu dates and watching her compete and all of these things. It's like, and hopefully she likes it. And I think that the only way she will like it if she sees us loving it so much, or for you and your son. But if that's not the case, that's not the case, and so be it. But if that, like, one of the like core memories I have from the internet and like almost breaking down and crying is watching the relationship between like I don't know if you know him, Khabib, which was one of the most famous UFC fighters, and his son, and just like how in tight they were, just in everything, and they were just bonded by that training and that shared goal between the two of them. And that is something that really moves my core, and I'm hoping to experience that, from just be part of that relationship with my child and hopefully children.
I'm sure you will be, man. Just live by example, be a positive influence, and that's just going to come by default. I've got no doubt about it.
I'm so excited to see you stepping onto the mats, bro.
Yeah, it's going to be good, man. It's going to be good. Well, we'll definitely keep the conversation going, brother. I'm stoked for all the things you got coming. You got several tournaments in the pipeline. I'll link out to your profile on the show notes here so people can watch along. And as always, man, if you need anything from me, just holler.